Hi guys. So I want to give you an update on my services app. Last time when I was showing you the app, I had a few problems, so I couldn't show everything, and so I'm gonna start with that, and then I want to talk to you guys about the changes that I'm making to the navigation on the app because I'm using the default navigation mode, and now I'm trying to update to the new Navigator 2.0. Navigator, yeah, I think Navigator 2.0, and I want to show you guys why. So, first of all, let me show you. Okay, the last time when I was showing you the app, I had some problem when I was selecting the text field where I couldn't select the text field after a while, and I had to figure it out why. And basically, it was because here on this screen, I was registering to listen to the input of the keyboard. So that the user could just skip these images instead of pressing the buttons or pressing here on these bullet points. The not the bullet points. These are, how do you call these ones? These are not bullet points. They have some other name. I don't remember now. But instead of pressing here or pressing here, the user could also like press the keys, the arrow keys, like left and right. And for some reason, when I was listening to this, when I would go back to another screen, I would no longer be able to press the input fields. I don't know, it was something related to how the input was being like grabbed maybe from here. But I was releasing and everything when I was destroying the screen, but it didn't work. So basically I just removed the ability to press with the keyboard. So right now it's working. I mean, I didn't fix it. I just removed that that ability, and now it's okay. So now I can show you the app, the entire flow of the app, because I haven't shown you the last screen, the changes that I made to the last screen. So let me just search here something, and here I already know that this one exists. On this screen, to be honest, I still don't. I'm not very happy with this screen because I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep the search box here or if just gonna give like a list of the locations that are available. Once again, the locations are a finite number and they are not that big of a number, so I can just show just like when I'm doing here something like this, but filtered by the locations that actually exist for that service, because maybe it doesn't make sense for the person to be like typing what location that he or her wants, because as soon as I have the service, I already know what locations are available. So maybe it's easier to just say, okay, these are locations that are available, so you can see if we have some service, some company that performs the service in the location that you want. I'm still not sure, but that's probably one of the changes that I want to make here. So here I can search for this one, and now we have the results. The results will be a list exactly like this one. So I made a change from the mobile version. On the mobile one, we had like a three dots menu here that we would press and open a small dialog with these three options. But on the web, that didn't make much sense because we have all this space there to occupy with icons. So it doesn't make sense to like hide these options behind a menu, because if I want to contact each one of these companies right from here, or if I want to like visit the website, it will make sense for me, at least on the web, to be like opening the menu, going to the dialog, selecting, closing the dialog, going to the next one. So now we have all these three buttons here, and my idea is when a company doesn't have the phone number, the email, or the website, the button will be disabled, and all the companies will have three buttons always here on the right. You can see that I also added the tooltip, so you can see directly what's the number, or the email, or the website. And if you press, I mean, call on the web doesn't make sense, probably, but if you press here, it will send an email just for that company, to that company. And here it will open the website. And so here it's exactly the same as the mobile, and these options I also changed it, so this one is still the same. So if you press the contact, it will send an email to all the companies that are on the list. Right now we only have one, so we only have an email here, but the big advantage of this is that if you have like 10 companies, you can send an email to all 10 at one go. And you can also save the results of this search. And my idea to save here, I mean, on mobile, I think when we press save, I'm opening like a share action, so you can choose where you want to save this information. I mean, the information is the same, but you can choose if you want to use want to send it by message, if you want to save it to the device, something like that. On the web, didn't make sense to do that. So my idea here is that you just send an email. You can just send an email to yourself or to someone else with the whole list with all the information. So you can see we have the company name, the description, the phone number, the email, and the web page. And if we have more than one company, then it will appear just like a list of this information like this. And yeah, so this is how the app is working right now. I think the the layout is more or less ready. Maybe I'm gonna change. Okay, this doesn't work. This is what I want to talk to you guys about. This doesn't work properly. And now the app is, yeah, has some problems. So let's just, okay, now I can go back. And here you can see that that's the problem. So what I was saying is that probably I'll change this layout, but that's it, I think. Now I want to talk to you guys about the navigation. Initially I was using the default navigation on Flutter. So I was using the command. Let me show you guys. Navigation. Yeah, I was using the default navigator, so you can navigate to a route just using navigator.push, and you just say, okay, I want to go to this screen, like in this case, second route or some other route. And you can send data and everything. But then I had a problem because I wanted to update when I was using the default navigator. The browser URL was not being URL in the browser was not being updated as I was navigating through the app. And I wanted to do that because, let me see if I can just restart the app so I can show you. No, now I have this. And this is exactly what I'm fixing because it's not working very well, the navigation. So now, before, when I was using the default navigator, the URL would always stay like this. And I didn't like that because, for example, when we are doing a search, the person might want to bookmark the results of the search. So when it comes back to the website, the search is already done. It's already the details are, I mean, the service and the location are already selected, and so the user can see immediately the results. But if we don't have a URL, if we are not changing this, every time the person comes back to the website, you will go back to the initial page. And I didn't want that. So I wanted to change update the browser URL as we are navigating through the app. The first thing that I needed to do was to change how the URL strategy works, because by default, when you create the Flutter app, the URL would look something like this, if I'm not mistaken. It has like this hash symbol on your URL, and then you can just do whatever you want with the rest of it. But I didn't. I wanted to remove this, and to remove this, we need to change the URL strategy. And basically, this what we need to do to change URL strategy is to have this method set URL strategy and say that we want a path URL strategy. And this is something that we call from the main. So when we create the app, you have like this configure app before you run, so to set the URL strategy. Now the problem here was that this is really easy to make, and why I have this, why I'm not using this on the directory on main, it's because we can only call this when we are running the app on the web. And this was a little bit difficult to get at first, but basically what we need to do is we are importing one file or another one if we are running on the web or not. So basically what this line here does, you can see that I'm importing the configured non-web or the configured web files, and it will import this one. But if we are on Dart library, if the Dart library.html exists, which only exists when we are running on the web, then it will import the configured web.dart. And so what this does is that both of these files, let me show you guys here, both of these files, the configured web and the configured non-web, are declaring this method, configure app, and we are calling this method on main. So this method exists all the times. I mean, despite the platform where we are running. But since only one of the files is imported at runtime, or not at runtime, sorry, at compile time, since only one of the files is imported, this method will call the correct implementation. So if we are running on the web, it will call the configure app and set URL strategy. If we are not running on the web, then it will call the same method, but it doesn't do anything. And this is the common strategy, at least from what I saw. This is a common strategy to deal with importing or calling different methods or importing different libraries when we are on the web or not. So this was the first change that I need to do. And we'll go back to this in just a bit because I need to show you another stuff about importing libraries or importing files when we are on the web or not. And so this was the first thing, to remove the hash from the URL. And then I needed to update URL. And with the default navigator, I could do it with the default navigator now that I think about it, but I ended up using first changing the default navigation. Instead of using simple routes, I changed it to start using name routes. And name routes is, instead of using this default navigator push and just say what screen you want, you can use routes which have like a name. In this case, you send the name of the route, and when you want to navigate to that route, instead of push, you call push named, and then you say, okay, I want to go to the route, in this case routes.search, and you can send data as well. And I'm using this because this uses another method called onGenerateRoute on the Material app, where you can see when the route changes. And you can see when the route changes and do something with it. And this is easier to update the URL, at least I thought so, because then you have a single place where you can just change URL according to the route that you are using. So if I go here to my Material app, I can show you guys. So I just added this onGenerateRoute. You have the settings. The settings basically is the name of the route that we are passing when we call the push named. And this is called, on two different occasions. It's called when we call the push named anywhere on the app, and when we change URL on the browser, because if we change URL on the browser, it will also enter on this method, and when we call the push name, it will also enter on this method. So we can update the app state according to the changes that we make inside the app or outside, in this case the browser URL. I'm not very this is the first time I implemented this, so I'm not very an expert. I'm not an expert on all this navigation, and you'll see, because I'm still trying to implement the next version and I'm having a lot of problems, but this is the way I see it. So here you get the URI of the settings.name. Settings.name is going to be like what's written on the URL or the name of the route that you passed, and then you just parse that text, and you try to figure out what's the route that you want to load. So for example, I see if my URI path is equal to routes about, and here I created a file where I have all the routes available in my app. So I have the home route, the about, so you can see like // about. Then I have the search route, and the search route has three different alternatives. So I have a /search, which will go to the search, which is exactly the same as the home. Then I have the /search service ID, and service ID and location ID. So when I have a service ID, I'll go to the screen location. When I have the service ID and the location ID, I'll go to the screen companies. And then I have the screen join, which is a screen where you can have the form to join the app. And I can also have the screen join with a token. And this is something I'm going to implement that allows for the companies after joining to edit their profile. And I haven't created like an authentication, so the companies are not actually creating an account. They don't have like a username and a password. What I'm doing is that, okay, they'll join the app, then I'll send an email where they confirm their email, and that they are not bots or anything. So they confirm, they activate the account, and then when they want to change, their profile, they just go to the link that I send them, and that link will have a token that's associated with their account. And I'm also going to add a button on the app that when you press, if you don't have the link because you delete the email or something like that, when you press that button, you will receive a new email with a new token, and you can just add it to your profile. So this way you don't have like a proper account, you don't have a password that you need to remember or anything. You just have like your email, and you have this like link that will give you access to the edit your profile. So I can have the /join or the /join with a token. And here I'm using the routes. When I see like when the path is equal to routes about, which is /about, then I'm gonna open the screen about. Then when it's equal to the search, I have all this code to see, okay, if we are searching, do we already have a service ID? Do we have a service ID and a location ID? We don't have anything. And then according to all that, I'll just send to the correct screen. And the join I do exactly the same. And then at the end, when you are using onGenerateRoute, you need to return a page route builder where you say what is the screen that you want to go to. And you can also use this to create animation, the transition animation. I'm not doing that. So I changed to the name route. It was working okay, so I could already parse what on the URL of the browser and change the app state according. But when I was changing the app state, it wouldn't update the browser URL. So I ended up using this method where, let me show you, this is not Navigator push, Navigator web, which we have like this library, HTML library, and you can just push the state to the window history, and basically what this does, it changes the URL to the route that you are using. And you can see that I also have a Navigator web and a Navigator non-web, and this was a bit of a hassle to deal with, because it was one of those situations where you need to import one library or the other when you are on the web or not. And in this case, it was not one library or the other. It means that if you are on the web, then you use the library. If you are on the web, then you use the Dart HTML library. But if you are not on the web, then you don't use it. But then I also needed a way to just have like one navigator here that I'm creating here, Navigator app Navigator, which is an abstract class. I'm going to show you. This is an abstract class that basically will import the library for the web when we have an HTML, when we have an IO, which is a mobile, I think, it's going to import a non-web version. Otherwise, it's going to import, we have an app navigator stub. And the app navigator stub is just so that we can have like a default import that will always be overridden by either the non-web or the web version. And the stub, let me see, app navigator stub, oh, it's here. So the app navigator stub is the one that first will declare this method getNavigator instance. But then when we call the getNavigator instance, when we call the app navigator, actually, when we call the constructor, it will call this method. But since it will import this library or this one, it will always call the getNavigator instance correct method. And each one of these files also implements the getNavigator instance. Let me show you. App Navigator, where do I have it? Oh, here, Navigator Web. You can see that both of them also implement these ones. And when I call the getNavigator instance on the Navigator Web, it will return an instance of the Navigator Web. When I call it on the Navigator non-web, it will call an instance of itself. And a really important thing here, because I was following a lot of tutorials to get to this solution, is that this getNavigator instance needs to be outside of the class in order to work, because this is basically this is like overriding the stub implementation. This is overriding this get navigator instance, which is not inside of any class. And initially it took me a lot of time to figure it out because I was putting this inside the class. But no, this needs to be outside the class, so it overrides the other implementation. So the way this works is that, okay, we say that we have a stub that doesn't do anything, and then we have a library that we're going to import by default. And then we say, okay, if we are on HTML, import the web version. If we are not on HTML, import the non-web version. And when we import both these files, these will override the implementation of the stub with the correct version, the web version or the non-web. So when we call then on the main.art, we can use the app navigator, which is like an abstract class, like a polymorphism. So we can use an app navigator like a generic implementation for this class, but we are actually using the concrete implementation of this class because the navigator web and the navigator non-web implements the app navigator. So we can use an app navigator as the default one, like the generic version. And all of them, and the app navigator implements, or the here I'm implementing. I think I shouldn't be implementing by which was just a declaration. I'm not sure, but it's actually declaring the method that the other ones will override. So in this case, the web overrides and actually do something. The non-web overrides and doesn't do anything with it because we don't have a browser to update. So this was some work that I had to put in to get to this solution. But then I have this solution, and now you can see that when I'm searching here, you can see that the URL is changing. So search service ID 494, which is the service that I selected. Then I can select this one, and you can see the URL. Now I have this complete URL with the search that I'm doing. And my idea here is that if a user bookmarks this URL and then opens again, it will get immediately the results for that search. And this was all good, at least I thought so. So when I was joining, you can see the join, the about screen, but then I wanted to go back, and you see like I was in the search, then join, then about, I go back to the search service ID. So I go back to the beginning, and I can go forward, and if I go back again, then it goes back here, and then eventually it crashes somewhere because of this. You can see that it paused the execution. So it was working, at least I thought so, but then I searched about it, and they say like the default navigator doesn't support very well this syncing the URL, the browser URL with the app state and the other way around. And so I eventually like surrendered and I said, okay, maybe I need to implement the Navigator 2.0. Because at this time, I already tried before to implement the Navigator 2.0, but it seemed like really complex and you don't have a lot of the documentation. At least I couldn't find it. And all the tutorials that I find, they are like examples, like small examples. You have two screens, like a list screen and a detail screen. And when you press this one, you go to the other one and you can go back. And that's it. And it works okay. But then the implementation that they are using everything inside main, so they can access all the data in the app inside main. And that doesn't really translate to what I have here. Despite this app being really simple, it doesn't translate to those small examples. So I'm still trying to implement it. So I have it here. I already have like the classes that we need to create, like the route path, the router delegate, the information parser. And these are the three main classes that we need to use. And right now, what I have is that I can open the app and have the home screen. But then I press the buttons and they don't go anywhere. And that's something that I'm working on. Because it works in a different way than the original Navigator. The original Navigator had like an imperative strategy where you say, okay, I want to do this, now I want to go to that screen, now I want to go to this screen. And this new Navigator it follows more a declarative approach. So basically what happens is that you are not saying to the app, I want to navigate to this screen or that screen, But basically, what you do is that you change the state of the app, and according to the state, the app will send you to different screens. And that's what I think I'm missing, because I'm not managing the state of the app in a way to do that. So that will be the next change that I'm going to make. And that's it. I mean, about the navigation, this is maybe just about the navigation like 1.1.0, and then I'm going to deal with the new navigation and come back to you guys to just show you what I've done to get it to work. That's it. Thank you.